Here.
Salvatore?
Here.
Mancini?
Here.
Sergio? Powers? Here. Higgins?
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no items under C of approval of minutes. We'll go right to D, remarks from the audience on any subject.
Ray Peterlin, 5811 Weinward Drive, Brook Park. I have a question. Are we under a snow emergency ban? Can somebody answer that for me?
I would say we're not.
Okay. I understand we have 2 vehicles to take care of snow removal from the sidewalks. They seem to be very rarely used. It seems like we have a safety hazard in this city because they're not being used. You got people, mailmen, delivery people, kids getting off school buses, walking in the street because they can't walk on the sidewalk. And if they're being used at all, that would be maybe 20% of the time, an 8-hour day shift. There's 100% would be that you'd be missing 80% of the work week. And if they're out even 20% of the time, you're not getting 20% work out of them because you got breaks, you got lunch, you got stuff like that. You have to get to your job site to do the work. So maybe you're getting 15% out of these expensive pieces of equipment. And in the meantime, people can't walk on the sidewalk. Is that a safety hazard? And what are we going to do to fix it? Can somebody answer that for me?
Mr. Peterlin, we'll have the service director meet with you after the meeting.
No, I like to have something on the record, sir. That's why I'm up here. That's why I wait my turn, and so that it goes on the record. I don't want a private meeting, sir.
That's fine, but I'll have him meet with you afterwards. That's not part of you.
Could the safety director tell me if this is
That's under service. The sidewalk plows are run under service, not the safety department.
Good evening, Council President.
Good evening.
My name is Jim Astorino. I live at 6258 Ingle Road. I've come here to the council chamber tonight, not only to address council members, but also to address the community of Brook Park. As most times, you know my style. I come to speak frankly and directly. The votes are counted. The people have spoken. I'm here today to now say, let the healing process begin. Let's all work together to make Brook Park a shining example once again as a middle-class community. I come tonight extending an olive branch and to offer my assistance to start that healing process. I know that for many Brook Park residents, the state of politics in our city is a concern. The politics stand to divide and destroy us. If you haven't been personally affected by the political climate in our community on either side of the spectrum, you probably know someone who has, a friend, a neighbor, or a member of your family. The community does not need to hear another round of debate about the crisis our city is in, because they live it every day. For some, it's the worry that they wake up with and the source of sleepless nights. It's the job that they thought they would retire from, but now they have lost. And their dreams are now hanging by a thread. The impact of the politics this year is real, and it is everywhere. But while our city may be weakened and our confidence shaken, though we are living through difficult and uncertain times, tonight I come to ask publicly that we put our differences aside and work on rebuilding and restoring Brook Park. If we do this and stop the political gamesmanship on both sides of the debate, Brook Park will emerge stronger than before. The answers to our problems do not lie beyond our reach. They exist in our community and the pride of Brook Park. Brook Park is home to some of the hardest working people. Those qualities that have made Brook Park a great place to raise a family. What is required now is for Brook Park to pull together, confront boldly the challenges we face, and take responsibility for our future once more. Now, if we're honest with ourselves, will admit that for too long, we have not always met these responsibilities as elected officials or as a community. I say this not to lay blame or to look backwards, but because it is only by understanding how we arrived at this moment that we'll be able to lift ourselves out of this predicament. The fact is, our city did not fall into decline overnight, nor did all of our problems begin when this administration came into office. We have lived through an era where too often short-term gains were accepted over long-term stability, where we failed to look beyond the next payment, the next quarter, or the next election. A surplus became an excuse to transfer funds for expenditures rather than taking the opportunities to invest in our future. Well, that day of reckoning has arrived, and we must change the course to take charge of our future. Now is the time to form a citizen-based task force with members appointed from each side of the issue to work with this mayor and his administration to develop a recovery plan for our city. To develop this plan, we must be prepared to make hard choices to build our reserves. This is what the agenda needs to be, in my humble opinion. We need to find a way to work together. That's what I'd like to offer to you tonight. I know there are some that may be skeptical of whether my offer is sincere. I understand that skepticism. Here in Brook Park, we've all seen how quickly good intentions can turn into broken promises and wasteful spending. I want to speak plainly and candidly. Without a plan that is well thought out and the whole community is invested in, Brook Park will not recover. My concern is that if we do not start healing Brook Park will continue to be polarized. Our recovery will be choked off before it even begins. Is it unreasonable to ask that we all take responsibility and give input to the vision for our community? Brook Park must create a blueprint for our future. But that does not mean we can afford to ignore our long-term challenges. A suggestion, how about hosting an event and invite the community to a public forum and listen to what they have to say? Council members, with a plan of this scale comes enormous responsibility to get it right. We need to get this thing right. In our city's time of crisis, we cannot afford to govern out of anger, malice, or yield to the politics of the moment. So I ask this council and administration to join me in putting aside our differences and do what is ever necessary to heal our community. I reject the view that we cannot work together. It is your responsibility as lawmakers to make this system work, but it is the responsibility of every citizen to participate in it. And so tonight, I ask and make a commitment to work towards being part of a solution. I know that we haven't agreed on every issue thus far, and there are surely times in the future when we will part ways. We need to overcome the extremism. But I also know that everyone who is sitting here tonight loves Brook Park and wants it to succeed. That must be the starting point for every debate we have in the coming months, and when we return after those debates are done. We all love Brook Park. We're going to argue about things, but at the end of the day, we got to love Brook Park and move it forward. That's the foundation on which we build common ground. Our hometown history tells us that even in the most trying times, amid the most difficult circumstances, there is a decency and a determination that perseveres. Brook Park people have always helped Brook Park people. When someone in our community needs help, everybody rallies and helps that person. We need to do that again. I am confident with the spirit that has always been in Brook Parkers that we can be successful. We are not quitters, we are resilient. I would caution members of City Council not to view every disagreement as an attack. Public education on issues should not be viewed as an attack. If we disagree with something you're doing up there and we tell you that, it doesn't necessarily mean we're attacking you. It just means we're telling you our point of view. Don't treat it as an attack. Be a little bit more receptive to it. At times, we'll put pressure on you, and I'm hopeful that you'll be receptive for the greater good. As always, anyone who wants to meet for a cup of coffee to talk about this stuff, I'll buy the first cup. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm at now my second council meeting, unfortunately. My name is Joe Markusik, 13911 Bellbrook Drive. The mayor, obviously, is not even at this meeting. At the last meeting, he told me that we were going to meet after the meeting which was hand on my left shoulder and call me this week and we'll get together and talk about your concerns and issues. I called him. He's not available. He's obviously not available tonight either. So I want to know when our mayor is available, when I'm going to be able to talk to him, and I'm telling you, I am watching you. I am not going to let go of this. You guys need to be on the stick and get the city back and put it back the way that it was. This is wrong, and you guys are accountable. He's accountable, and he isn't even here. If he would have said he's not going to be, we just had an election, and he can't even be here. What is this? Is this a joke? These are people who pay your salary. You are accountable to all of us, and I am tired of this crap. Thank you.
You give your information to the clerk, council clerk, we'll get back to you tomorrow.
Susan M. Anderson, 5700 Grayland Drive, Brook Park, Ohio. Good evening, Mr. Council President.
Good evening.
Good evening. When each of you took your oaths of office, whether you were elected or appointed, you raised your right hands and swore to uphold every law and ordinance of the city of Brook Park. The laws and ordinances of our city are to be applied by each of you without prejudice to every resident, business, or visitor to our city, from the highest official all the way down to the common man. The laws and ordinances of Brook Park are to apply equally, regardless of the consequences. When there are two sets of rules, one for those in positions of authority versus another set for the man or woman on the street, you begin to veer dangerously close to tyranny and anarchy. This is something that must never be allowed nor tolerated. The time has now come for each of you to search your individual and collective souls, deciding whether or not you will truly fulfill your oaths of office, which you took before God and man, by enforcing the laws and ordinances of Brook Park. Each of you are duty-bound to do so. You cannot, you must not, do anything less. Please honor the will of the voters and reopen the Rupert Road Fire Station. Thank you.
Good evening, Jan Powers, 16110 Harrison Drive. I'm following some people that have pretty much made my point for me, but I will continue anyway. I don't think it can be said too many times. I have come to the podium to ask my fellow colleagues, now that the debate is over and we have heard the voice of the people, please become an active member of council. To sit back and be complacent is not acceptable. You were elected by the people of this community, and they have spoken loudly on several occasions that they are not happy with the direction the city is going. We serve at the will of the people. For you to play political games with the future of this city is unacceptable. Voting for everything this administration brings forward and then not endorsing it, and then sitting back with your hands up and saying, it's not me, it's the mayor. It's a mockery of our system. Our community is in a dilemma. What does this council do to resolve the dilemma? You council members that are veterans scream, berate, and at times try to embarrass the new members in front of others. As for our elected law director and finance director, you also have heard from the voters, and your job is not to advocate the mayor's desires, but the desires of the voters. As the mayor himself has said, the voters are never wrong. Well, this election shows me, while I might not have your protocol and procedures down, I do have the pulse of my residents down. I will continue to advocate to be their voice. I suggest that the rest of you take a look at the results of this election and see how the residents in your areas have spoken. Then align your actions on council with the voters' desires. A lot of voters I speak with are not completely convinced of your true motives and having their best interest at heart. I would love to hear a word of apology from City Council for doing nothing to protect this city and the interest of the residents. You could have placed this issue on the November ballot, but you chose not to. That inaction is what forced a special election which cost this city around $30,000, not including the cost of whatever mailings the administration put out and billed the city for. I doubt that we will hear that tonight. I have heard the grumblings that only 2,500 voters voted and that represents only 35% of the entry electorate. To you, I say, polling is done with a sample of 600 people in a community of this size to determine the community views with a high degree of accuracy. I ask my colleagues to take action and pass a resolution tonight urging the mayor to acknowledge and respect the voice of the voters and open up the Rupel Road Fire Station immediately. And I don't know if you have looked at the calendar or not, but if you don't want to be in here for extra meetings, it is time we get a proposed budget so that we can have it studied and ready by the end of March. And some of the things that I want to address on that budget is the animal shelter, the cars for people, the clothing allowances, and the paid lunches. And I want to point out that I am wearing a uniform shirt tonight. This uniform shirt tells you who I am and that I am a council person. If the city wants to buy any employee a shirt that tells you who they are and what department they belong to, then we'll know whether or not they're using company time to go do their grocery shopping. If they're where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there. And the city should take over the purchasing of any uniforms, not give this $500 to $700 allowance to city employees that don't have to account for where they spend the money, and it doesn't go for uniforms. And the cars and lunches speak for themselves. But the animal shelter has been a concern of mine for a long time. We are spending on rent and utilities and dog food and that kind of thing over there. We are spending about $48,000 a year. And last year we had 109 animals. Well, I have talked to several different communities with their animal shelters, and I found one that will take our animals for $150 per dog and $100 per cat. And when they take our animal, that is the sum total of our obligation. And if they told me, and we at our set shelter too, we have far more cats than dogs. But if you counted the 109 animals we had last year at $150 per animal, we would be paying $6,500 for the total cost instead of the almost $50,000 we're paying otherwise. So that is all I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ted Hurst, 16683 Cricket Lane. I just have one question or a couple of questions for Mrs. Powers. When we're talking about taking away the clothing allowance of $500 to $700 and the paid lunches, Would that be something you're in favor of across the board to every employee in the city? I'll wait for an answer when we're done. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Council. Tom Greenlee, 15841 Paulding Boulevard. If you notice my limp, or if you see it, you guys got me on round one. I slipped in my driveway, taking my trash can out, and chopped up my hand and bunged up my knee. So I can thank you for that, for taking away the senior plowing. I wasn't really going to come up this evening, but I see what others have come forward to say, and I wanted to stress possibly a viewpoint that you haven't considered, and that is when you took office to take over and take command of our city in the legislative process. You inherited a city that had 36 firemen. In your first year of office, you chopped that to 28. You had a fire station number 2 that was open. You closed that. You had, I don't know how many, because I haven't seen the breakdown, but as of January 1st, there were 17 who had been employed by the city who are no longer employed by the city. And the actions that you people have taken in your first year that you are responsible for do not, in my estimation, warrant a passing grade. But this next year that's coming forward, you're going to be facing a lot of very divisive issues, not because they are currently divisive issues, but because you're trying to totally alter this city that you took control of. For years, well, since we've been a city, we operated a fire department, we operated a police department, we operated a recreation center, we operated a emergency medical service, we operated rubbish removal. The council, the city prior to the council prior to this one, even invested in new automated trucks and rubbish cans for the whole city. Now you're going to be facing the issue of privatizing and making that a zero equity investment. It loses all value, even though we've paid excellent or large sums of money for it. It loses all value because we no longer are going to be using it. There is a $1.2 million fire truck. According to the mayor of Middleburg Heights, that's the value he places on it. That we are going to be begging Middleburg Heights, will you please let us use our truck rather than the way it's listed now on the agendas as sharing. There's no share. They've got it, and we're going to beg them to let us use it if we have an emergency. If they haven't already exercised their mutual control with another city and it's 10 miles further away. But now that the people spoke yesterday, there is a whole new beginning. The fire truck now has a place again for it, and there will be 2 people manning it, which can offer first response into that geographic area, which, by the way, if you haven't read 1710, the fire marshal, the fire chief, is to report every year whether or not he is able to meet those minimum requirements of 1710 in every geographical area of the city, and which is 240 seconds for response with a 4-man truck. From Holland Road to 210 Brook Park Road can't be met in 240 seconds. And that's the minimum requirement according to 1710. And you are going to be facing a mutual agreement with Cleveland, which should be scrapped since it's no longer necessary, that says that you have exclusive responsibility for 210 Brook Park Road, which is NASA. And we have no response of 240 seconds to 210 Brook Park Road. You may get it to 237 in Sheldon, but you can't get 240 seconds over there. And if you could, what's wrong with using the fire station number 2 and servicing all of this side of the town? No one would be for that, because you know you can't do it. And you can't service that side of our town from Holland Road. So that's another one that should be scrapped. The sharing of our trucks should be scrapped, and you're going to be voting on that very shortly. It's not necessary anymore since the voters spoke yesterday. And every one of you, including our safety director, including our fire chief, took an oath to uphold the ordinances of the city of Brook Park. Our fire chief is no longer capable of honoring his oath. Our safety director is no longer capable of honoring his oath. You are no longer capable of honoring your oath. Why? Because of an arbitrary decision by the mayor that the people have overcome, have thrown out. So it's up to you now what you're going to be doing in your second year of running our city and the major things that we're going to be facing. Thank you.
We're going to move the agenda to item E, reports from standing committees, Aviation Environmental, Councilman Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank my fellow colleagues for passing the dues for our noise dues for this year. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Councilman. Finance Committee, Councilman D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board of Control met tonight. There were 15 items on the agenda that were passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Legislative Committee, Councilman Schroeder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Legislative Committee has nothing on tonight's agenda.
Thanks, Councilman. Parks and Recreation, Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have legislation on tonight's agenda, but I just do want to thank our Recreation Commissioner for the tour that she gave me of the downstairs for where the leasing is going to be and giving me the details on that. Very informative, so I just want to thank you for that. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Councilman. We'll go to Planning Committee, Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did not have a meeting on the 2nd, which would have been on Monday. We had no applications or table projects. We will have a meeting on March 2nd. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. We'll go to Safety Committee, Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to have the safety director thank the firefighters for taking me on a tour. I spent a couple hours with them, and they took me on a detailed tour and explained a lot of stuff that they've been doing, and that's why I did tell them thank you, but I'd like you also to include a secondary thank you as well. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Councilman. We'll go to Service Committee, Councilwoman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of things that I need to report, and I need input from council. I drove on Henry Ford Boulevard from Brook Park Road to Hummel Road a couple of times this past week, and the road is totally washboards. You bounce your car over every seam there, and if there's that many cracks in it with the freezing and the thawing and the water getting in there, how long is it going to take for us to have chuck holes? And we just got through doing that road this year. I want to know if, through the finance director, through the chair of the finance director, Greg, have we paid for that road entirely?
Through the chair to Councilman Powers, no, it hasn't been paid for entirely.
Then my suggestion here for all of council is that since that road only was open, what, September, October, something like that, and it is already falling apart, should we not continue making any payments until they make the road right? we all have to share the responsibility of, you know, we said yes to the money. Everybody up here, somebody had to inspect it, somebody had to sign off on it. So we really are all obligated to see to it that this is done right. Also, I saw a sidewalk sweeper out today on Fry Road, and I wondered, are all our sidewalks going to be clean for the mailman, or
Jan?
and the
Councilwoman,
children?
this is under your service committee. The questions you have really should be given to the reports of the engineer or the service director under their time.
Okay.
You know, this is for things that are in your service committee. But at
Okay.
that time, you should bring that up,
Okay,
okay?
all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Board of Zoning Appeals, Councilman D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board of Zoning met on Monday, the 2nd of February, and there was one item on the agenda with dealing with Harley that was approved. And the next Board of Zoning, provided there's applications, met on March 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Move to item F, reports from special committees, Southwest General Health Center, trustee Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next meeting is scheduled for February 25th. I'll have a report after that meeting.
Thanks, Councilman. We go to the Berea Board of Education representative, Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was a meeting on February 2nd, a board meeting at the Middlebrook Heights Junior High, which would be Mid-Park Junior High. And there was a meeting yesterday, the PTA council meeting at Grindstone Elementary. The superintendent stated that Berea City Schools will start a monthly newsletter starting in the second semester, which started in January. You'll be able to read on the Berea City School website. A reminder that there'll be no school on the 16th on President's Day, and there'll be a board meeting at the administration building on the 9th of February. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We'll move the agenda. We have no items on G, H, or I. We'll go to J, reports, communications from other departments, commissions of public officials. We'll start with our city engineer, Ed Piatek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple items tonight. The Smith Road Sewer Project, starting February 16th, is what we're currently scheduled to start the work through the Snow Road intersection. That's Snow Road and Smith Road. Contractor anticipates working around the clock until they get through the intersection area. It will be disrupted. Traffic will be impacted. We're going to do our best to minimize those impacts, but there's only a certain way that you can do a project like this. So I'm just going to ask everybody to bear with us as we make our way through that intersection. And I'll address Mrs. Powers' comments earlier about Angle Road. Some of those joints have reflected through the surface course and the intermediate course of the asphalt. The inspection company and the contractor have been notified that there's some issues over there, and we're looking into getting those fixed in the spring. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ed. Any member of council have any questions to the city engineer? Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And a couple of things on that project. When you're making that cross through that intersection, will we have an auxiliary officer or anything of that sort over there helping out?
Yes, actually we have a meeting scheduled with the safety director and the police chief, I think for Monday, to coordinate with them to see what everybody thinks we're going to need as far as how many officers and what we're going to be doing. So yeah, there will be some officers helping with the traffic move through that area.
Okay. Two other things real quick. One, I know when, and Dennis and Brian probably know the answer to this too, but when residents' general information, when streets are rising a little bit, that is the water getting under there, the ice, everything on them, is, you know what I'm talking about, like, I'd say Hummel Road, streets like that where it decreases.
Yes, it's the freeze thaw, and I mean it happens every year, and you know it hasn't been an easy winter. Not that we've had many lately, but
no, not at all. And the last thing, thank you. Did you have to get a hold of that merchant up there on at Brook 8?
I returned the call. I believe that was Friday, and I haven't heard back from him.
Okay, no problem. I'll give him a ring tomorrow. Let him know and make that correspondence. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Councilman Higgins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair of the engineer, this actually might be for the service director, though. I traveled northbound on Smith Road, though it's not my ward, in front of Brocade. That curb lane over there has got some really bad, numerous chuck holes, almost impassable. I'm not sure who's maintaining that, whether it's the city or the contractor, but something needs to be done over there. It's almost impassable. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
If I can respond to some of that. I know the service department's been out in some of those areas, and we have the contractor trying to fill those truck holes almost on a daily basis. I know I was out there today, and we had made comment, and as soon as they fill them, you know how it is. As soon as you fill them, they pop right back out. But we'll stay after them.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the engineer, speaking of chuck holes, the Smith Road project from where it begins on the southbound lanes all the way to the end, there are, again, numerous chuck holes, and they're getting so bad that when I want to go to Brook 8, I take the circuitous route and go down the back way and go across Fry Road to get up there, because I don't want to risk hitting a chuck hole that I don't see and damaging my car. So it's really bad up there. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Bergio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to chime in on what Councilman Powers said. I really agree with her. The streets are deplorable. I think I asked you last year, Ed, that it was like the fishboard kind of thing, to get a lot of bumps in the wintertime. Does that tend to decrease a little bit when it thaws out again?
They do go back down a little bit, but not like you'd like them to. But you will see them go down
A little bit better, yeah. Okay, on the same note, hoping that we could find some funds to fix some streets, because they're pretty bad. We are all aware of that. About when do you, I think the service director could go out during the year to assess the streets? What month would that be?
Well, we usually do that in the spring, or as soon as some of the snow gets off the streets. So I would say,
April, March, April, something like that.
hopefully February.
Oh, that really?
But that all depends on the weather. We're not going to go out and do it with snow on the ground.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move the agenda. We'll go to our service director, Lou Kayat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Crew's been out plowing, salting. We've had a heck of a winter this year. So if it's not snowing, we're having freezing rain. I had 800 ton of salt delivered last week. I have another 400 ton coming this week. We've been keeping up with everything. When the guys aren't plowing, they're filling chuck holes. I've had third shift out there on that Smith Road that everybody's talking about here. You can't do it during the day because of the traffic. Everything's choked down to one lane both ways. So you'd have a line of traffic back to Brook Park Road or back into Middleburg Heights, one way or the other, as the guys are patching a hole. So I do have them on third shift with a hot box doing them. Okay, and what's happening with those chuck holes, all the heavy traffic that's pushed to one lane, as soon as you put the stuff in, you get these overweight trucks that come out and they blow the stuff right out. If you look at the curb, you'll see how you got the cold patches pushed up to the curb and just whooshed right out of the holes. So we try our best to keep up with it. That stuff's not cheap, and we do our best with what we have. Also, the sidewalk plows have been out several times, and they were out all day today. I have them scheduled for tonight on third shift if it doesn't stop snowing. I don't have enough bodies to put in the trucks and the sidewalks. I believe there is, I'm not certain, but I believe there's an ordinance that people need to do their own sidewalks. I know I do mine. I know some people can't do their sidewalks. That's why we do have those machines. And we I make sure stuff's done here around City Hall, down by the park, all the public properties that we have, that the sidewalk plows go there first, and by the schools. So I have all the school areas that kids walk. And really, there's not many of our kids that walk to school anymore, but we still do them. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Lou. I'll start with Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Lou, and I know the guys are out there, and I know they're doing their best. I know you're a bit shorter than when I was there. I know you're a bit shorter than this time last year. The side streets, and again, maybe a little on Sunday, maybe when I asked last Tuesday, it seems like I'm hearing a little more chatter on them side streets than I'd probably like. And again, I know the guys are doing the best they can. Is there a system that we're doing this that maybe we could fill us up?
Yes, I do the streets first that there's thousands of cars travel on, and we do the streets that hundreds of cars travel on, and we do the streets, your side streets as you mentioned, which
So
dozens of cars.
Main secondaries, and then we do the residential.
Yeah, Jim, it's been that way when you were there, you know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But Lou, I'm just stating for reference. Again, I mean, they're doing a super job out there. Well, you're right. What we did, we got snowed last week or Thursday. I think it snowed Sunday, and then it come Monday, and it came again today. So absolutely, and I know they're doing a good job. But I just, what I'm telling you is just once in a while, and today a little bit, I hear about the side streets, and so I felt I had to bring it up. And again, I know you're short. I mean, we know that. So, but I appreciate the answer.
Well, everything was running water at 3:30 when I went home today.
It was.
And when I came here at 6:30, it was 4 inches of snow.
Exactly. I just have my drive rate. It's 6:30 to 7. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also to the Service Director. I was going to say you probably have more trucks than you have bodies. I understand that. On any given emergency when you call out crews, how many are called out? How many do you have available to work the streets?
Well, we try to, they're limited how many hours they can work. And how many guys, we have a sign-up sheet. Guys sign up to come to work, we call them, we work them 12 hours. They go home, we bring the next crew in for 12 hours. And we try to put about a dozen trucks out there if we can, from the small pickup trucks to do the cul-de-sacs, to push those out because the large trucks have a difficult time maneuvering in there. And we put 3 trucks out on the mains, and then we have 8 routes that consist of your neighborhoods, 8 different neighborhoods that we put the other trucks in. That's pretty much how we do it.
Okay, I do appreciate that, and I think that under the circumstances, they do a pretty good job with limited resources, so I just pass my appreciation on to them. I appreciate that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just got a positive note to Mr. Kate. I got a call from a resident on Forest View the other day and said that whoever did the cul-de-sac over there, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday, but the way they did it, they didn't push the snow on their driveways. I guess there's an issue over there. And I was out there last night, and I saw that somebody came by and took some of the piles off. So that's a positive thing. You guys, I got a compliment from a resident, so you can take that for what it's worth.
Thank you, Councilman Troyer. What I have been doing, last year I started doing it, I don't know if Dennis did it and Brian when they were service directors here, but the cul-de-sacs, I sent a loader in there with a dump truck because you're limited places where you can put snow. And we do haul it away, been dumping it over here at the water park in the parking lot there. So pretty soon it'll be a ski hole for the kids to play on. I think I know which house you're talking about. That's Mr. Ellis in that home. He is a member of my motorcycle club too, so I told him I'd give him a little special attention over there.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move the agenda. We'll go to our Safety Director, Dave Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things to note. On the police department, we had the retirement of Sergeant Roman Bunkalowitz on Sunday. He served the city for, I think, 28 years, and his last day was the other day. And so we'll be giving him a resolution, I guess, for when the mayor gets back. Police are converting on the 8th to 12-hour shifts, as opposed to the 8-hour shifts patrolmen currently work. This is going to help us in reducing some of the overtime by the supervisors and also give us greater coverage during the busier times of the afternoon. And this was worked out with the FOP, the NLPBA, and with the police chief. They worked out the details themselves, and it's going to start on the 8th of February. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, that completes my report.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things to the Safety Director. I know I mentioned to you about a month ago, I think it was, that I would like to tour the facilities fire station, and actually I did, and I was invited to by Matt. I'm glad he's here today. I was going to ask you to thank them for giving me the tour. I think I was there about 4 hours, asked a lot of questions, as he will attest to, and I got a lot of good information, so I appreciate the invite there. And I was really impressed with the technology. I did the tour years ago with Dominic Campan. I can't believe how much the technology has improved. So everybody should see what they do and what the kind of tools they have and equipment to get the job done. So I just wanted to thank them for that. Also, while I'm talking about that, Jim, I like what you said. I agree with what you said. We need to pull together. I think we all love Brook Park. Different methods of attaining the goal, but I think we all have that in mind, that we want to make Brook Park a better place to be. A place like it used to be, I think we all would love to see us prosper again. And I think that we all need to work together, get the issue behind us. I appreciate the work that you guys did, getting all the signatures. That's a lot of work to do. And I think democracy is a good thing. And as I mentioned before election day, that if issue 2 was to pass, I think we should honor the people that voted for it. And that's my opinion. But again, I just wanted to thank Fire for having me over there. It was a good experience. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Seeing no others, we'll move to our
Just one thing real quick for Dave.
Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, one thing real quick. I know with the snow and the weather and everything, and I had seen the Enmark car, and I've seen them out for the speeding, and I'm always big on that, and definitely appreciate it, and let them know, the police know. On these snow plows, obviously I do Sylvia, I do my neighbor's aprons, I'm out there. I've seen, I don't, yeah, thanks, I am, and even with the new hip, I've seen some snow plows, the driveway plows, not so much the ones that are red, that look like they got the stickers on, but I see some unmarked ones, and maybe some got lights kind of, and I know they probably got a lot to do. They probably do their businesses first, then hit their residentials. But, I would say Sunday night, Monday, some of them, a little with the gas pedal a little bit, if they could just kind of be on the lookout, maybe that for a little bit. Most of them didn't have anything on the sides or anything like that, so, and I know they're trying to make a buck. But I just think it's something we got to keep a little bit of an eye on, and I'd appreciate it if you could do that and say everything else I appreciate, because I know they're out there. I seen them pull up some people over in the school zone, I believe on Monday. So I know they're out there. I appreciate that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Council. We'll move the agenda to our Law Director, Neil Jameson.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody have any questions? Any member of council have any questions to the Law Director? Seeing none, we'll move to our Recreation Director, Mary Ann Fields.
I just have one quick comment. I had a great meeting today with YOU, which is Youth Opportunities Unlimited, where we might be able to work with them and get juniors and seniors and high school internships at the Recreation Center, which are totally paid for. So I'm looking forward to pursuing that and trying to get some kids some paid jobs inside the rec that would help us with programming. That's all I have.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Councilman Mancini.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Mary Ann, good job. Basketball Saturday is very good. We're getting good participation. We're getting nice crowds, grandparents, everybody coming up there. Any word, have you heard any on this euphoria possibly over at for the pool or anything? Have we gotten anything?
I have not heard anything else.
Okay, I appreciate it.
I know he's still interested, but I have not heard anything else.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good job over there.
Councilman Higgins.
Mr. President, if you wouldn't mind, I missed a question to the Law Director when we're done. You mind?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I made a Law Director, I need to clear this up because, I heard it again tonight and it's just not true. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. There's a statement made that as if council would have passed an ordinance that the opening of that fire station would have went on a November ballot and we could have saved the special election. Is that true?
That's it. That was a false statement by Ms. Powers. I'm trying to be nice in saying it. Basically, by the time they presented it in August, and for council under the charter and Ohio Revised Code to perform what they needed to do, it was not enough time. If they really wanted it on a November ballot, they should have presented the petitions earlier. They're the ones who chose that date.
And because of the time frame, council properly followed the time frames set in place or provided by law, and so that statement was incorrect. If that committee would have wanted it on the November ballot, they should have presented it at an earlier point in time.
Okay, I'm not looking to open a wound, I just wanted to correct that statement, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, you did open a wound.
Is this to the law director?
To the law director. Well, I could, he can comment, yeah, to the law director. Mr. Jameson, isn't it true that if council would have acted faster by putting it on that, I believe there was a special meeting right away, by putting it on the agenda faster and turning it down faster, that the committee could have gone out and got the signatures required to get it on in time to get it on the November ballot?
First of all, the law provides that from the time it's presented, that there has to be a public hearing on it. Council complied with that. After that, council then had the right, I believe it's up to 30 or 60 days, I forget the time frame, to then review the ordinance, proposed ordinance, and as we went through this back in August and September, they could either adopt it, make changes, or totally reject it. This body chose to amend it. That was their right. So to blame council for doing that and not getting it on the November ballot, that wasn't their fault. If the committee would have looked at the law and the timeframes that were provided to allow council to perform its duties, then they should have done it earlier to get on the November ballot. So to blame them to put on that their inaction didn't put on the November ballot, they followed the appropriate course of time to review it and go through it. And I find it interesting that, you know, as it's raised, you know, Mrs. Powers gets up, Mr. Astorino gets up and says, let's heal. I agree with that. But then she takes a match and tries to set everything on fire 2 minutes after he got up. This is one of them. I mean, to blame this council for that is an incorrect statement.
Okay, let's move the agenda. We'll go to the finance director, Greg Single. Greg, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 2014 audit started yesterday. For the next 4.5 months. The auditors will be on and off site working on auditing the City of Brook Park's financial records. So I'll keep council up to date as to the progress. And also, Mr. Chairman, monthly reports for January will be distributed here in the near future. And that concludes my report tonight.
Thanks, Greg. Any member of council have any questions to the finance director? Seeing none. Seeing none, we'll move the agenda. Item K, other communications, petitions of verbal approval, introduction of new legislation. We have one piece. Have a resolution repealing resolution number 11-2000 entitled Home Improvement Months Waiver of Building Permit Fees and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Coyne. Place this in the Finance Committee. We have no items under L. We have one under M, introduction of resolutions and ordinance under first reading. Item number 1, ordinance number 9956-2015. Michelle.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with the City of Cleveland for mutual aid and assistance in fire protection and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance number 9956-2015. It's had its first reading. We'll move the agenda. Item N. We have one under second reading, ordinance number 9953-2015.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with the City of Middleburg Heights to share the use of a 2002 Sutphen aerial platform ladder truck and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance number 9953-2015 has had its second reading. Item O, third reading of resolutions and ordinances. We have two. Ordinance number 9954-2015.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the mayor to enter into contract with Ohio Guidestone Incorporated and declaring an emergency.
Move to adopt.
Support. There's a motion to adopt, properly supported. Question on the motion. Michelle, please call the roll.
D'Amica?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Bergia,
Yes.
Powers,
No.
Higgins.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance number 9954 has been adopted, 2015 has been adopted. Item number 2, ordinance number 9955-2015.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the mayor to enter into contract with Bridges Rehabilitation Services, LLC, and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
It's a motion to adopt, properly supported. Question on the motion. Michelle, please call the roll on the motion.
Higgins,
Yes.
D'Amico,
Yes.
Troyer,
No.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Bergia,
Yes.
Powers.
No.
Ordinance number 9955-2015 has been adopted. Seeing no further business, this meeting is hereby adjourned.